Good evening. A coroner has called the probation service woefully inadequate at the conclusion of the inquest into a man killed by a criminal on licence. Conor Marshall was beaten to death almost 5 years ago at a caravan park in Porthcawl. His killer, David Braddon, was being monitored by the probation service at the time. Well, our reporter Alexandra Hartley has been following this and joins me now. Alex, what more did the coroner have to say?
Well, Kylie, after a 2-week inquest at Pontypridd, the coroner's court, the coroner today concluded that Conor Marshall was killed unlawfully and his death could not have been avoided, prevented or predicted. But the coroner also took the opportunity today to point out a string of failings by the probation service at the time. We know that Conor's killer, David Braddon, was on probation for 2 community orders at the time for assaulting a police officer and for drug offences. He also missed a string of appointments with his probation officer. The court heard how his probation officer was very new to the role and she felt overwhelmed with a high caseload, and she reported the service at the time being understaffed, overstretched, and the coroner today upheld that. In fact, he went on to say that she was failed by her managers. He said the support and supervision she was given was woefully inadequate, but she was doing the best she could in the circumstances she found herself in. And of course, after almost 5 years of fighting for answers, Conor Marshall's family were outside court where they gave a statement supporting and welcoming the coroner's findings today.
The coroner's findings today have vindicated what we have always known to be true, that the supervision of David Braddon was not robust and the management system in Wales CRC were wholly inadequate. The coroner identified 7 major failures. Had these failures not occurred, we will never know whether our son Conor would still be here today.
And Alex, you've been keeping in touch with the family throughout this inquest. How difficult has it been for them?
I mean, incredibly difficult. I mean, losing a child in such a brutal way is unimaginable. But to add to that, they've had to fight for answers every step of the way. And they told me they are desperate to ensure no other family has to ever experience what they have. Richard Marshall, who was Conor's dad, has never spoken to the media, but he sat down with me along with his wife Nadine to tell me about how the trauma of Conor's death continues to affect them. And just a warning, there is a graphic image in my report.
It is hard to imagine anything worse than what Nadine and Richard Marshall have endured. And the pain of losing a child never fades.
You love your kids forever, and I'll miss my child forever. And that's exactly what I feel. You don't stop loving your kids. Never ever stop loving your kids till the day you die.
Oh, I miss Conor so much. And I don't want a single mum or family to feel this way, because it's just so horrible, it's exhausting, it's hurtful, it's never ending. And it's unfair.
It is almost 5 years since Conor was murdered, but not a day goes by that his parents don't think about that moment.
That picture is in my head all the time. And I just seen this human on the trolley. And then I realised it was Conor. As he was going past me, I realised it was Conor. And that was horrible. I only just recognised my own son. He'd been beaten that bad. Yes, people get into scrapes, they get into fights, they get into arguments, but to actually beat somebody that bad, to hit him with poles, the pole marks in his face, the footprints on his head, his internal organs were damaged. He just carried on beating him and then stripped him naked and just left him there to die. If a human being could do that, he shouldn't be on this earth.
And from day one, the fight for answers and the fight for change has driven them. It has not been easy.
I want to make sure that no other family is ever treated in the way that we've been treated by the probation system. I can't eradicate crime. I can't stop crime happening. But the way that victims are shunted around and ignored and belittled is completely unacceptable, and I want to make sure that that doesn't happen.
One of their biggest disappointments is that the man who killed their son has had automatic access to support services, in total contrast to them as victims.
We've done nothing wrong, and yet we're the ones just losing out. Our children, we've had to fight for counselling for the both of them all the way through. You know, he's just clicked his fingers, he's got a counsellor, he's got a doctor on hand, he's got this, he's got that. Whereas we've got to go fighting for it every step of the way. And if we can stop one family, just one family, through going for what we've been through, I think we've done a job.
The inquest may be over, but the trauma of what happened to Connor will always haunt them.
How do you survive each day? How do you keep going?
Life goes on, as Connor's tattoo said. I gotta keep going for my family, for my wife and my other 2 children.
How can you get closure from having your eldest son cold-bloodedly attacked and robbed, stripped, beaten and murdered? How do you move on from that? Inside I'm crumbling, and I crumble daily, but I have to keep doing it for Connor. Connor wouldn't want me to give up, and I won't.
They will never forgive, they will never forget, but they will fight on for Connor.
Connor's parents speaking so bravely and powerfully there, Alex. The probation services have been overhauled in recent years. Are there still lessons to be learnt, though, in this case?
Sadly, I think there are. It seems so. Whilst there have been improvements and changes, I spoke to the union who represents probation staff after the inquest, and he said that staff report very similar experiences even today. They feel overwhelmed with their caseloads, overstretched and understaffed, and he is calling on the government to put more money back into the service to repair it and to unify it.
There are still problems across the country. Workloads, sickness absence, pressure of work. It's endemic. And it will never get right until the government seriously listens to the views of experts and brings that work back under public control.
Well, we've asked for the Ministry of Justice for a comment. They're yet to comment on that, but we have heard from Wales Probation Interventions who say they will now review the coroner's findings to ensure they learn any additional lessons and do everything possible to reduce risk and keep people safe. I think, though, the final thought has to be with Connor Marshall and his family, who will have to live with the consequences of these events for the rest of their lives. And as they told me, they will never move on and they will never find closure.
Alex, thank you so much.